Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Carol and I'm so glad that you stopped by. I hope you'll consider subscribing, like and share my videos, and follow me on social media. I will leave all the links in the description box below. So today we are going to be talking about sourdough starter, and I'm going to show you that it is easy to make it and it's easy to maintain it. It does not have to be complicated. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Now, I want to preface this video by saying I'm not a sourdough expert by any stretch of the imagination. I don't really desire to be a sourdough expert. I just wanted to have a sourdough starter on my shelf to enjoy its benefits at my leisure. I know many people shy away from sourdough starters because they feel like it's complicated to make one, first of all, and then it seems complicated to maintain it. I know I was kind of in that category. I've tried one in the past and I just felt like it was just too much maintenance and not something that I wanted to deal with. Well, last year when all the craziness started happening, I felt the need to try again. So I have tried again and I have been successful in creating a starter and I have enjoyed maintaining it. We don't eat a lot of bread. We're pretty much empty nesters now, and my husband and I don't eat a lot of bread, but I do like to bake once or twice a month, sometimes once a week. It just depends. And so I didn't want something that I had to maintain every single day and I had to bake with frequently. So I am a casual, what I would call a casual sourdough baker. And the goal of my video is to just share with you what method I used and what works for me. Everyone has a different take on sourdough. There are many different ways to make a starter. There are many different ways to use your starter. So today I really just want to share what works for me and hopefully encourage you and inspire you. If you're someone who has been afraid of sourdough, I want to encourage you to not be afraid of sourdough and to just show you that it's not hard to make it and it's not hard or fussy to maintain it. So I used King Arthur Baking's method for making sourdough starter, and I am going to link all this information for you in the description box below. They walk you through every single step of making your starter. They give you things to look for and lots of great information. And actually, I love how King Arthur Baking puts it. The lady who wrote the article for them, she says, "First, a word of advice. Sourdough baking is as much art as science. This method for making sourdough starter isn't an exact match for the one you read on another site or in a cookbook or in your great-grandma's diary. If you have a process you've successfully followed before, then hey, stick with it, or try this one and compare. It's all good." So there are a few things that I have found that are important in having a successful starter. First, you want to start with good flour. I love King Arthur Baking's flour. It's a nice high quality flour. I can always depend on it. So make sure you're using a good quality flour. They recommend starting with a whole grain flour, either whole wheat or rye. The first time, or last year when I made Sam, I used their sprouted whole wheat flour, and this time when I went through the process to make Sid, I used rye flour. So make sure you have a good quality flour to start with. You also want to use unchlorinated water. I use filtered water from my refrigerator. I've also had success with spring water. So either one of those is important. The other factor that's important is the temperature of your kitchen. You want it to be between, they say, 68 and 72 degrees. And my kitchen is at least 72 degrees the majority of the time, and that does play a big role in how quickly your starter is up to snuff. So make sure you have a warmer place to keep it. If your kitchen is not that warm, you'll want to try putting it above the refrigerator for some ambient heat, or you can try putting it in the oven with just the light turned on to warm it up just a bit. The temperature, I think, is really important to success. And if you follow me on Facebook, those of you who have been through the process with me over on my Facebook page, several of you found that if you just warmed your starter up a bit, it was sluggish in the beginning, and then when you warmed it up a bit, it just took off. So I think the temperature plays a really big role. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to walk you through the steps. Like I said, I've already done this on Facebook with my group over there. So if you don't follow me on Facebook and you like Facebook, you might want to join me over there. Sometimes I do things over there before I make a video about things, and I share things over there that don't always make it into a video. So as I walk you through the days, you may notice that I was talking to more than one camera, and that's because I was trying to film for my video and film to put it on Facebook too. So that's kind of what that is all about. So let's get started with day one. Good morning, everyone. We are ready to start our sourdough starter. I'm going to be starting off, Sid is going to be his name. You need a non-reactive container. A quart-sized mason jar works really well here. We need a half of a cup or 4 ounces of non-chlorinated water. I like to use filtered water from my refrigerator, but I have also used spring water with great success. And we also need 1 cup or 4 ounces of whole wheat or rye flour. And we're just going to mix it all together in our mason jar and let him sit for 24 hours and do his thing. One good point to make is make sure you are using appropriate measurement utensils. You want to use a dry measuring cup for your flour if you're measuring it that way, and a liquid cup for your water. You can also use a kitchen scale to measure things in ounces. So you need 4 ounces of each. So what I do is I just pour. The other thing to note is I did spoon in my flour and level it off with a knife since I'm not actually weighing mine. So you don't want it to be too heavy, you don't want too much flour. And then I just use my hand like a funnel and carefully pour in my flour. Then we are going to add our 4 ounces or half a cup of water. Mine is room temperature. And we're going to give all that a really good stir. We don't want any dry patches of flour, and it's going to be pretty pasty this first day. So you want to mix carefully. Make sure you check the bottom and the sides to make sure everything is fully incorporated. And we are good to go. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to cover him loosely. I'm just using a mason jar lid. I'm not going to lock it down. You can also use plastic wrap, just anything for it to be loosely covered. And I'm going to let him hang out in my kitchen for 24 hours. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our sourdough starter. So here is my starter, what we started yesterday. Sid has been sitting out for 24 hours, and you can tell we have some bubbles going on. If you don't have any bubbles yet, don't worry. That is all dependent on a lot of factors: how often you bake, how much wild yeast is in your kitchen environment, how warm or how cool your kitchen is. So don't worry, but I do have some nice bubbles going on. I'm really happy there. So today is also going to be really simple. What we need to do is we need a half a cup of our starter. So I'm going to stir this up. And then I'm going to remove a half a cup of it. You don't want to pack it down. You just want to carefully measure it in your jar. If you are weighing, it's 4 ounces that you need. So it's going to be about a scant half a cup of your starter that we need. We're going to get rid of all this. He's going to get discarded. All of this is getting discarded. And then I'm going to take a fresh jar. I'm going to put in the half a cup of starter. To my starter, we are going to add a scant 1 cup of fluffed flour. So I take my flour and I fluff it really well. And then we need a scant 1 cup. If you're measuring it again, or if you're weighing it again, it's 4 ounces. But what I normally do is kind of scoop in and up when I level it off. If you want to be more accurate about it, go ahead and measure out 1 cup and then remove about 2 tablespoons of flour. So it's a scant 1 cup is what we want, or 4 ounces. Carefully add that to your jar. Then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of non-chlorinated or filtered water. Mine is room temperature. If your kitchen is cool, you're gonna want lukewarm water. If your kitchen is warm, add cool water. Again, it's 4 ounces. We are doing a 1:1:1 ratio. So everything in equal amounts. And we're gonna give that a really good stir. Again, we do not want any flour. We don't want to see any dry flour. So make sure you stir really, really well. A nice long spatula like I'm using works really well if you are using a mason jar. And that looks good. So we're gonna do what we did yesterday. I'm just going to loosely cover it. Again, I'm just using a canning jar lid. You can use plastic wrap if you prefer, or something else that will loosely cover it. And we are going to let him sit another 24 hours. So good morning, everyone. It is day 3 of our sourdough starter series. So today we're going to switch over to 2 feedings a day. Hopefully you can do them about 12 hours apart is ideal. So hopefully by today you are starting to see some bubbling. If not, don't worry, just continue the process. Today is just going to be what we do today is going to be repeated until you have a vigorous starter that doubles within 4 to 6 hours. So we're going to be using all-purpose flour again. Again, we are going to be taking half of a cup of our starter. Once it's stirred down to it, we're going to add 4 ounces of flour, a scant 1 cup, and also 4 ounces of filtered non-chlorinated water. So I've got some nice bubbling going on here. You can see we've got some bubbles. It's looking really good. He's really vigorous. Sid is doing really well. Really happy. So I'm going to stir him down. And then just to make it easy for me, I'm just going to use a clean jar. You don't have to. You can just continue to use this jar and remove half of it, or about a 1/2 a cup. But I'm going to put about 1/2 a cup of my starter, or 4 ounces if you want to weigh it. I love using mason jars because they have the measurements on them and it makes it really easy. So we have 1/2 a cup of a starter. This is going to get discarded. And to that, we're going to add our 1/2 a cup, or 4 ounces of water. And then we're going to add a scant 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Again, make sure you fluff it really well. We don't want it to be too heavy. If you want to weigh it, it's 4 ounces, but if you're lazy like me and don't want to weigh it, I just measure out a cup, and then as I'm leveling it off, I kind of remove about 2 tablespoons. That equals about 4 ounces of flour. So we're going to carefully add that to our jar. Yes, I lost a little bit there, but we're fine. So just take your spatula, spoon, whatever you're using. Give it a good stir. And today you really should start seeing some type of action, but like I said, if it's not as vigorous as you think it should be, no worries. There are lots of components that affect how quickly your starter will grow, the temperature of your kitchen, how much wild yeast is in your environment, all of that. So no worries if he's not moving along as quickly as you'd like. Or if you have an overachiever and he's doing it faster than he should, good for you. So just make sure there's no dry flour again. That's what he looks like. And again, we're just going to we're just going to loosely place, I cannot talk this morning, loosely cover him. I'm just continuing to use my lid. We're just going to let him hang out on the counter for about 12 hours. So you need to repeat what we just did 12 hours from now. Now on day 4, 5, 6, 7, however many days it takes for you to get a well-established starter, you are going to repeat what we just did on day 3. You're going to start feeding your starter at 12-hour intervals. So once you start noticing a lot of bubbling going on and it looks like it's getting ready, what you want to do, and this will happen anytime after day 4 on up, however long it takes you. Once you start seeing a lot of activity, you're going to want to monitor how quickly it doubles in size. Once it starts doubling in size between 4 to 6 hours, then your starter is established and ready to use. And a great way to do that is to just, after one of your feedings, after you've noticed that it's become nice and active and you've got some really nice bubbles going on, if you put a rubber band, if you use a mason jar, if you put a rubber band where at the top of where it starts and keep an eye on it for 4 to 6 hours and see how long it takes it to double. The rubber band is a good way for you to tell how quickly it's doubling. Once your guy is doubling, or your gal, in 4 to 6 hours, it's established, ready to go. You want to give it one last feeding, let it get nice and bubbly and active. It should look like this or similar to this with all those nice bubbles. And then you can go ahead and bake with it, or you can pop it in the fridge and just let it hang out in your fridge, which is what I do. I store mine in the refrigerator. When I want to bake with it, I let it sit out, let it warm up, let it get active and bubbly, and then I will take out my 1/2 cup of starter, add a 1/2 cup of water, a scant 1 cup of all-purpose flour in another mason jar, mix that together, let that become active and bubbly again, stick that back in the fridge, and my discard I bake with. So this is what it looks like when you take it out of the fridge. It's sitting at about 2 cups, just below 2 cups, so I will let it sit at room temperature until it warms up and starts to bubble up a little bit. It'll be about at the 2.5 cup mark when it's ready to for me to discard and feed the remainder of it. Okay, so my starter has sat out and warmed up, and you can tell that it is now up to the 2.5 mark, and see how bubbly, nice and bubbly it is. So it's time to go ahead and use it. So what I do is I just, like we've done before, just stir it down, and then I put a 1/2 cup in a new jar, just like you've seen me do before. So I have a 1/2 cup of my starter in here. We're going to add a scant 1 cup or 4 ounces of fluffed flour, and you can tell I fluff it up and then scoop it, and then I remove about 2 tablespoons for a scant 1 cup of flour. Put that in, mix in 4 ounces or a 1/2 cup of water. Give it a stir. Make sure you get all the flour mixed in. You don't want any dry patches. And then I just loosely put my lid on, let it sit at room temperature until it's nice and bubbly again, and then I will screw the lid down a little bit tighter and stick it in the fridge. My discard I am going to use in a recipe. And that's really all there is to maintaining your starter. Just take it out of the refrigerator once a week, at the very least once a month. Let it come to room temperature. Stir it down. Remove a 1/2 cup or 4 ounces of starter. Feed it. Allow it to sit and bubble, and then stick it back in the fridge. And your discard you can use to bake with in a recipe, either fed or unfed. It's that simple. I like how King Arthur puts things. It says, if after a week your starter isn't ready, no worries, don't lose heart. Keep feeding it regularly and it will gain strength. And yes, it really will. Be patient. The conditions in your kitchen may be more or less conducive to building an active starter depending on your room temperature, the season, the humidity, and how much you've been baking. All those things will affect your starter. And just to reiterate, I already mentioned this, but they state, remember the keys to developing a successful starter are using good unbleached flour. I did fail to mention it should be unbleached flour you are using, having a consistent feeding schedule, and ripening or growing the starter in an environment that's adequately warm. They recommend at least 68 degrees, preferably in the 70s. I think it does better when it's even a little bit over 72 if you can manage that. So, and then when your starter's ready, you can bake all of your favorite breads. I hope you will give the process a try. I hope it wasn't confusing at all. I hope it feels like it simplified the process for you, and I hope it inspires you to try creating and maintaining your very own sourdough starter. I think it's very rewarding. I have a few recipes on my channel where I've used sourdough and made videos for you guys. Some of them are with fed starter, some of them are with discard, and I'm going to be adding more because I have really enjoyed sourdough baking. So stay tuned for more recipes. Leave me comments, questions, anything you want to know. I'm happy to help you. There's a lot. You could really go in depth with sourdough. Like I said, I'm just a casual baker. I really just want to know the ABCs of creating it and maintaining it in a simplified way. But if you want to delve into the ifs, ands, and buts of sourdough, there's lots of information out there. In King Arthur Baking, they have a ton of articles for you to read that discuss everything you ever wanted to know and more about sourdough. So anyway, this video was just to get you started, to encourage you, and to inspire you. So leave me a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, guys.